Hello. Hi. They changed a bunch of stuff in the YouTube backend, and I'm completely lost right now. Change. Hi, welcome. Ariane is here. Hi. If you're here, say hi. I've been a little quiet on social media, and I've not been promoting my live stream or announcing my live stream the way that I probably should. But it's also the month of December. So I think we're all, or not all, I think a lot of us are occupied with different things. Hi Sean. Hi Linda. It is remarkably warm here in the Netherlands for December 10, so I'm a little in between all my woolen sweaters and shirts. So, all right. Today we're gonna talk about hands, and like literally we're just gonna talk a little bit and sketch a little bit. I'm sort of planning or trying to plan my live streams for next year. Some live stream guru called Dylan Sarah gave me a tip to make a planning, which I will definitely give that a try. But for now, I think next week is going to be the last live stream, because the 2 Wednesdays afterwards, after that, are Christmas something and the 31st of December. So Ariana sent me a message, if I'm allowed to disclose our messages, with some of her really great artwork, because I love Ariana's work. Done for, I think it was Let's Face It, Ariana, I'm not really sure. And there were hands, and she thought that the hands looked a bit gnarly, a bit rough. I think you would translate the Dutch word like that, and asked if maybe we could talk about such things. So I have some drawing material, and I think next year maybe we can go over anatomy and go over I don't know what, maybe even color, and we can do stuff in paint. But let me just switch real quick. I think for now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna try and talk about some of the common errors in drawing or in painting hands when you're past the point of having to learn anatomy and having to learn drawing or painting in the first place. And because I think a lot of you are decent to advanced artists, right? You can draw a hand, you can draw a face, and then you start looking at, why is it not looking the way that I want it to look, right? And that's when you get, I also feel that way very often, you get into the territory where it's very difficult to correct yourself or to spot your mistakes and to find a solution for it, right? So Ariana paints very good hands, right? They're anatomically correct. I think they were even properly sized compared to the face, which is a very difficult thing to do. But they were looking a little bit rough. Let me see if this is, oh, that's good. They were looking a little bit rough, and I feel like a lot of times when people look at their work and say it looks rough, it looks old, no offense, it looks, sometimes people paint women and they say, well, they look a little bit too masculine. These are all words that we use to describe that there's something wrong in the more subtle range of learning to see and learning to translate to your canvas. Where's my reference photo? Hold on, so many buttons to press here. Hello, Elizabeth. Hi. Let me see if my reference photo, there we go. I took a photo of my hand. I'm gonna actually take a different photo of my hand to start with. Which may be better. To explain to you a little bit what I'm talking about. The two things I want to talk about today is exaggerated shape and exaggerated value. The first, they also call it, I've heard it called over modeling or over shaping. And what it basically means is when you see a shape and it changes, the outer contours change direction. Yeah, so it might go inward. And then it might go outward. And then it might go inward a little bit again. And then it might go straight down, right? When you pull a line down, you can see that this is the inward distance and this is the outward distance. And what a lot of people tend to do when they translate, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna relate, is that you're gonna go inward, right? Because you're contouring, whether it's somebody's body or if it's a tree or if it's whatever, a face or a hand, right? You go inward, and then your brain is thinking, wait, now we're going outward. And instead of seeing an imaginary line here and thinking, okay, this is the distance, I need to go outward compared to the center line, you're gonna think about this distance. And you're gonna go outward. And then you're gonna go back in and down. So when you translate that to hands, what you often see, I'm putting my hand up as if I don't have a reference photo. Let's just look at the reference photo. What you often see is in the case of the knuckles, right? Because our brain is thinking, okay. We have like a tip of the finger here. And now we get a knuckle. And now the knuckle, you think, and after the knuckle, it goes back in. It's not going back in, it's going straight down, but you're thinking it's going back in. And then you get the second knuckle. And then it's going back in to the other finger, and you're doing the same on the other side. I'm being very, very exaggerated. Like, I know you don't paint hands like this. I'm exaggerating the exaggeration. Right? And then we're gonna color the knuckles here. Voila. So now you have this finger with these exaggerated knuckles. And whenever your knuckles are very much wider compared to the little bone here, the slimmer part here, we tend to think that that's more masculine, that that's more gnarly, that that's more rough. Like it sort of translates in our brain to a stereotype that maybe we didn't want, right? So when it comes to fingers, especially, I think there are two things that you need to remember. First of all, don't shape the knuckles. Don't shape them at all, right? Especially not in the beginning when you're doing either your drawing or your basic block in or anything that doesn't involve details. Just don't shape the knuckles because chances are you're going to over model that. And the second thing with most fingers, like there are people with fingers that are the same width here as they are here, but in general a lot of fingers tend to taper towards the top, right? So here is smaller than here, right? So instead of this square shape, you make a tapered shape. A tapered shape that you can divide into 3 sections. Over modeling is also a thing that you often see when people draw faces that are 3/4, yeah, and then you see people over model this shape, right? You see people draw the nose, and then suddenly they do this thing with the cheek where the cheek suddenly goes out like this and then it goes in like this, and you get very distorted 3/4 views, right? Most of this is just straight, and the curve is very subtle, but we register it as a curve, and then our hand goes like, let's draw a curve, let's draw the curvy curve, right? So the same happens here. Over modeling also tends to happen in the palm of the hand. Do I have a palm? All right, it's the top of my hand, right? Where we tend to take out this area too much, and we tend to exaggerate this angle. The correct perception of values, and of angles, and especially when there are a lot of angles involved, yeah, when you go up and then you go down a little bit and then you go up and then maybe you go down, right? The correct perception of these angles is a difficult thing to practice without a tool. So without, for instance, your pencil going like this and seeing, for instance, if you hold your pencil here, you can reduce that down to a shape, right? And now these angles are not just floating into space, but they're anchored to something. And the same goes here, and the same goes with the alignment here, is that when you draw the line, a vertical line here, or you hold your pencil, don't draw on people, okay? Then you can see this negative space, if there is any, and judge whether or not you judge that angle right. So fingers, same thing. I want to get I'm gonna grab my other. And put it on my phone. I took these references really to sort of make my point. They're not very elegant references, nor do they serve any artistic purpose. But when it comes to judging some main features in the hand, the way that you do in the face, some of these might help, right? So we talked about tapering the finger. So you taper it both from the front, let's say this is the front of the hand, and you also taper it from the side. And the reference photo I just put up kind of illustrates that point, right? If you cut a line here where the knuckles are, and then you go towards the tip of the finger, right? I bend my fingers a little bit, right, like this, because I have flexible fingers. I have fingers that want to go everywhere. But instead of doing that curve, which we're trying to avoid, because we're trying to avoid over modeling this whole thing, we're going to take the average line. Yeah, so if you were to hold your pencil against this reference photo, you would chop a little bit off the bottom, and you would have a little bit of space left on either side, and that's the average, right? And then here on the top, same thing. Now you have that basic shape that is tapered. And I don't know what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, another finger here is my middle finger sticking out a little bit. You can draw that in, or you can just take it and make the whole basic shape one thing. When you look at the hand palm and you take this off, because this is technically the thumb, this is a rectangle, right? So we're taking it off here, right? We have opposable thumbs, which is why we're rulers of the earth. You can take that off, and then you have the hand palm here. And you have the same thing. Well, that's not doing much. Same thing here, right? Rectangle. If you look at it from the side, as in the reference photo, the palm of the hand, when looking at it from the side, is actually quite slim. It's not that impressive. And you can measure, again, with your pencil, the distance from the knuckles. And you will see that it's about the same length. Yeah, the longest finger about the same length as the distance to the wrist bone. That would be about here. Let me measure that again. Measuring on your phone is never great. All right, it's the distance plus the wrist bone. So let's say the wrist bone is here, and then I'm not sitting straight in front of my easel. All right, bone, arm, arm. The hand of a ballet dancer. I do not have hands of a ballet. I have the boniest ass hands out there. Yes, we rule, our thumbs rule the earth. Let's talk about the thumb, because that's the only thing. Now you have this flat shape, right? This is the arm, just ignore it. Now you have this flat shape, right? It's very unimpressive when you reduce it down to a bunch of, but then comes the thumb, which again is, you know, it's a good feature to have, right? So the thumb, as opposed to, well, not as opposed to the fingers, we have 3 sections, because we have 1, 2, and then is this technically a knuckle? I don't even know, right? But we have these 3 sections here, and the thumb we have 1, 2, and then we have this knuckle here. But then we also have this one. This one is interesting, right? For some people it sticks out, for some people it doesn't, but it moves in a different rotation, if you will, right? This is going like this, and you can do this. But this thumb can go opposable, right? So when you look at it like this or like this, what you're seeing is the palm of the hand, which is a bit of a rectangle. It's not very rectangle, but like this. And then you have this sort of triangle, right, with this skin. And then you have the thumb. This is the worst schematic of a hand ever drawn, but voila. Yeah, so this triangle, I don't even know how you call it. I knit. Ariana knits as well. When you knit mittens or some kind of glove, you call it the gusset. If you don't knit the gusset, then your hand doesn't fit in the mitten. It's knitting anatomy. So in this picture, we had the knuckle here, and then it goes in a little bit. And then you have this fleshy part. And then the thumb, well, what is it doing? It's just floating around here. If you take a look at the photo and you draw a line right here, like this line, this is kind of how you guesstimate. Something like this. We're gonna keep it square. Because we're not doing details. That is one basic ass hand. That is the most basic hand I've ever drawn. And now you can start refining a little bit. So let's talk about that, which is the second thing. I've got stuff all over my hand. Second thing that we talked about, other than over modeling, is over over contrasting, over contrasting. That's not even a word. Too high of a contrast. I see it in people's portraits a lot, where they want to accentuate. They want to express certain details, especially details they like, right? Here's how the brain works. You see something you like, and you think to yourself, if I just add more contrast there, it'll pop out more, it'll be better. And one of the common mistakes in portraits is people exaggerating this shadow. There's not much of a shadow here for me, but you know what I mean, right? The what's it called? Oh God. You know what I mean. The shadow that everybody contours with makeup, etc. So you think to yourself, yes, I want to highlight this, and then I want, you know, this to be very pronounced, and then you end up making this very dark or making this very light. Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day it's about the relative value, and somebody looks like they crawled out of a grave because the contrast is too high. And in the face, unless you're talking about eyebrows or dark eyes or nostrils or any kind of permanent shadow, there are really not a whole lot of value changes. And yes, the zygomatic arch, that was the one. We did not crawl out of the grave. In the hand, or in skin in general, and it doesn't really matter what color your skin is, the range of values is very, the steps are very small. So you could say the range is very compressed, right? So in skin, I'm talking about skin, so not eyes, not whatever kind of jewelry you're wearing. Your darkest darks are not there, your medium darks are not there, and your lightest lights are very often also not there. There are very few, well, there are actually, maybe the nail can be a little bit reflective, but even then it is not going to be as light as some people think it is. Other than the nail, there are no reflective parts in the hand, right? There's no eyeball, there are no teeth, nothing going on. It's a very big collection of very subtle values. And especially, I don't know why I'm drawing, I'm just drawing while I talk. Especially here, this piece of flesh that allows you to bend your fingers, right? It would be here. We tend to zoom in on that because there's a lot of folds going on and there are a lot of details going on. And what happens then is we tend to lose sight of the overall, of the general value of this area, right? If you were to blur this area, an average value would come out of that, and that average value is not very dark. So the difference between the general value, let's smudge it a little bit, here, and the general value here is not this big. And if you start adding that amount of darkness and that amount of contrast in those knuckle areas, it's gonna look like it crawled out of a grave. We're gonna keep that one. So let's take a finger, It's gonna be the weirdest live stream ever. All right, we're gonna take a finger. I'm gonna draw a finger. And we're gonna make it tapered. So it's more narrow here and it's a little bit wider here. And if you want to do basic shapes, just get this, because the only thing you can do with this is make block shapes. Okay. And then let's see. We have a little bit of distance here, right? And we have a little bit of distance. And a lot of times, let me get my pencil, people think this is very dark here, and it's not. It's just this finger is extending, like the shape is, the raised shape, the catching light is extending a little bit, and it's causing a very subtle shadow. And then we're gonna do a second finger. So I can illustrate sort of the difference. I'm gonna make a little weird ghost hands. You can do a third if you want. Here. And now we have two fingers. A Nightmare Before Christmas, yes. I missed my shot during Halloween. I would like a smaller piece. This is how all my charcoal ends up, in little tiny pieces. So I added maybe half a value. I don't even know, is there like do we have a universal value quantity? I'm pretty sure some dude wrote a book about what number 1 and number 1.5 is, but I added just a little bit. And you can sort of see, yeah, you can sort of see a knuckle, right? Now we're gonna add a little bit more here to sort of illustrate the point. The point, my point. Where is the rest of my charcoal? Apparently gone. So, makes sense, right? Let's emphasize the shapes a little bit. So, basic shape, tapered shape. low contrast. Sometimes your brain needs to sort of attune to subtle value changes, because we often tend to think a little bit too extreme, right? So that. We have time to do a little bit of drawing. It's been a long time since I explained something, which always goes marvelously well. All right, you guys have any questions? Sorry, that was really loud. If you have any questions, I'm just gonna draw the reference photo a little bit. But with what? You enjoyed drawing square hands and shading. Good. That might work. Yeah. I had my new drawing session last week again. That was fun. So here as well, you know, we can think about the angle. Like I usually tend to start here at the knuckle and then sort of roll down. You have these folds at the bottom of the finger that, you know, you can use for measuring, for estimating stuff. And when you start really low detail, it's not that hard to change stuff. And this is also nice. It's nice to try to sort of embody a shape with your pencil, you know, instead of putting down the lines like this and then coming to the realization that no, maybe you want it that way, and then you're kind of, sometimes we put down a line and it feels so permanent that instead of changing it or starting over, we're just sort of deciding to go with it, knowing that it's not going to be good enough for us, right? We should have, I think Robert Kelly at some point said something like not being too precious. I was like, yeah, Robert, you really understand me. He does though. So how is everyone doing? How is the month? Is it dark? It's like 5 p.m., not even, and it's pretty much dark here. Right. Oh no, your dad. Oof. Oh, that's really crappy. I'm glad he's feeling better. Oh, that's so scary. He's 91. Yeah. Yeah, 91, but still, you know, my grandmother was 94. Still, like, I don't know. It's not like you're not prepared, but you're also like, yeah, like you said, with everything you get that feeling like, is this it? Please, no. Stop. Right? Linda, you don't like this time of year. Too many missing clothes. Well, yeah. Just try to get through the season. Sean likes exaggeration in hands. That's really cool. I like super contrast, super high contrast in my drawing, painting. Cool. But you know, at the end of the day, whatever you do, nothing's wrong or nothing's right, right? What you do is what you do. And when you do something and you think, no, that's not what I wanted to do, that's when, you know, you kind of go check the list off. Is it the shape? Is it the value? Is it the color? Is it the this? Is it? So self-correcting, even like, let's say you think some of your work is, you know, it's not as vibrant as you wanted. That could also mean that your contrast is too low. If you're looking for a high contrast piece of work, right? But at the end of the day, there is no right, there is no wrong. There's just, you know, there are different techniques that can evoke feelings with people. And Kelly's not here tonight or today in her time zone, but Kelly went to the Jenny Seville Expo in Texas, and she sent me an absolute boatload, like gigabytes worth of photos and videos. So we're definitely gonna explore those in in January, right? Because, I mean, Jenny Seville's like the queen of subtle exaggeration, right? You dislike mosquitoes, and cool. Yeah, that's definitely a pro. That's definitely a pro. I heard they found mosquitoes on Iceland at some point this year. Can you imagine living on Iceland? And then, out of all things, you wake up to that, and you're probably thinking the world's gonna end. Like, what is that? A mosquito. Should be like drawing ASMR. My mom likes the sound too. In the north of Iceland, it means mosquito water, really. Maybe it was a specific type of mosquito, because it was on the Dutch news that, maybe I read it incorrectly, maybe it was a type of mosquito. There was a mosquito that was never apparently found on Iceland. Yeah, it might be the tiger mosquito. The painting I'm doing or tutorials will help me. Cool. You're loving the hand, thank you. Yeah, share the tutorials. Donating funds to help kids with classrooms. Do you have a name? Because I know like John Bardos does art courses every year for you know, to raise money for stuff. Ballet dancer. All right. Are we done? Maybe a little bit more noise. There we go. Piano player hands. I play the violin. I have good hands for violin as well. Yeah. I hope I made a little bit of sense. Over modeling and controlling your values. One other thing, and you saw it, I think, in the reference photo, like this. You can choose, like, because some of you mentioned, like, I like exaggeration, I like high contrast. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's you who chooses what you put on your canvas. And as long as you know, you control what you're doing, then you can repeat the process, right? If you paint something and it has a certain vibe, and you know what to do to sort of get that vibe again when you paint something new, that's when you become more consistent, a little bit more in control, instead of just like, ooh, I created something great and I'm not really sure if I can do it again. I tend to avoid some things, detailing some things, so I tend to avoid detailing this, but I also tend to avoid detailing this. Like, I have very, like, bony hands, if you want to call it like that, and I just don't draw certain parts. And sometimes I change, you know, when I use hands, my own hands as a reference, I change the shape of the fingers, so I make them a little longer, or I make them a little more tapered, or whatever kind of vibe you want. And then you can just throw red chalk at it and make like a giant red chalk blob that kind of looks like a hand, right? So, all right. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to catch up on the chat for a little bit. We're talking about Linda's course. Her name is Allie K. Cool. Oh, you mentioned, yeah, wow. Brain dead. I think you mentioned the kids in Kenya now it registers last time in the live stream that you were painting for that. That is really cool. Posted details on Instagram. Thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Next week, we're gonna do the last live stream of this year. Yes, I'm one of those people who's like, oh, end of the year and then the new year, it's going to be new me, it's going to be new everything. No, but next week's going to be last one. So maybe we can paint a Christmas card. I'm just kidding. I would never. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. And please join me next week for the end of the year live stream, a whole hour end of the year. I love you. I hope you have a great evening and a great day. And I will talk to you on social media. Bye. Mwah.